Welcome to Real Life Talks, where we're going to look at the Bible to see what the answers are to your questions today. With Jim Scudder Jr., we're going to be looking at kind of a hot button topic today. We're looking at Christians and divorce. And I guess the reason we really need to look at this is believers and unbelievers have basically the same divorce rate. And unfortunately, it's around half of all marriages end in divorce. It's heartbreaking.
Divorce is rampant. It's around us. It seems to me as a pastor and your pastor that we're seeing more and more people divorcing for more trivial reasons. You know, I really hate divorce.
Yeah.
I'm not the pastor, and you'll hear a few pastors say divorce is never right. We know that Jesus did make an allowance for it. We'll talk about that today.
Yeah.
But I do want to stress that divorce is so harmful. It's so hurtful. It's, kids that have to face that and go through that. My wife dealt with that, and she had and still does kind of have some scars from that. It
just doesn't affect the two people. It affects a whole lot of people.
It really, really it hurts, and the reason that it's never good is because the marriage is, first of all, designed by God, right? And God instituted, God designed it as something sacred. And it wasn't just, hey, let's have a male and a female get married and have children, and that's marriage. It's a picture of His unity. Literally, marriage is a picture of God. The Father, Son, and Spirit. You have the husband, wife, and the children. The entity of the marriage should reflect the unity, the cooperation, the love of God. So anytime you have a fracture of that, and it's always because of sin, it could be one person, it could be the other person, it could be both of them, you have harm. You have each of those two people, the husband and wife, there's going to be an emotional scar.
Yeah.
And then you have the children, if there's children involved. It's just terrible. And then all the other things that happen because of it. You have the fighting over, the support and the money and different things like that. We go to Scripture. We go to Matthew chapter 5. In verse 32, Jesus said, "Whosoever shall put away his wife, saying for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery." So, in other words, there was one exception. It doesn't mean it's automatic. But if there's adultery, if there's fornication within the marital relationship, that is a sacred relationship. It should never be broken.
And when someone goes outside of that.
When someone breaks that sacredness, then there are grounds, okay? Now, I will also say this. If you're being physically abused, 100% get out of that situation right now.
Your safety, the kid's safety.
Get help. I'm not saying divorce. I'm just saying separate for sure. Get out of that situation. But the only place I find in Scripture, the only allowance for a Christian to get a divorce is if the other partner commits adultery. But again, I'm not saying if it were my daughter and there's other certain situations that happen. This is one of those areas that until it hits home, it's a really tough thing to be a judge of. But I know one thing. I know that today people are divorcing for reasons they shouldn't be divorcing. What makes marriage successful is when two people who are unlovely can have the love of God in them to love the other person unconditionally.
And that's the only way it can happen is two people on their own growing closer to the Lord, because they're going to grow closer to each other.
And let me ask you a question, since you're a pastor, Jim. Does Christ's love ever end for His church, even if the church is failing?
Never.
Okay, so that's our model. That's our picture. And that's why I think it's harder for the husband, because the wife is told to obey the husband, honor the husband, but the husband is told to love the wife. And you say, why is that harder? Because it's an agape love. It's a love like Christ loved the church. It's unconditional.
Perfect love.
It's a perfect love. And that is really hard for us to model. The only way we can possibly model it is by the Spirit of God and His power helping us and us relying on that every day. So marriages are in trouble. Christian marriages are in trouble. The only solution is that we would get serious about loving the other person and doing it God's way. Divorce is an option if there's adultery. It doesn't have to be it's not the only option, but it is an option. If there's abuse, get out of that situation, get a separation. There's nothing wrong with that. But divorce should be the last option. Karen and I always say, you know, we don't agree on divorce. She says murder is an option, but divorce is never an option. So I hope she's joking. We take it very seriously. You know, we're going to work through all our problems. We're going to get help. You know, talk about it and try to be godly and everything. The principle really remains the same. But you need to be a Christian because you need the power of God in your life. To be a Christian is not just to go to church. To be a Christian is to believe that Jesus, the Son of God, died in your place. He died on a cross. He poured out his blood for you. And if you'll trust in him, you will not perish but have everlasting life. That's good news. And even if you've been divorced, you can still be saved by simple faith in Jesus Christ.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jim Scudder, for tackling, you know, a topic like that. We can always go to the Bible and see what it has to say. Thank you so much for tuning in today on Real Life Talks. We would love to have you comment, subscribe. You can also follow us at In Grace on Facebook and Instagram, and we will see you next time on Real Life Talks. I mean, people look and think like, well, gee, if these traditions are more important than what God says, then just do whatever we want, pick some new traditions, make stuff up as we go.
Then the door's wide open. If we're not sticking closer with what God said, then our heart really is far from God. It doesn't matter what our lips are saying.